Praise be Jesus and Mary. Today we celebrate the feast day of St. Simon and Jude. St. Simon was one of the first to join our Lord as an apostle. He's known as the zealot, perhaps because of his zealous character and or his association with the Jewish zealot party. They were known for their great zeal in observance of the Jewish law. Besides that, there's not much more information about St. Simon in the Gospels. St. Jude, also known as Thaddeus or St. Jude Thaddeus, Thaddeus means amiable, loving, was a brother and fellow apostle of St. James the Less, and both of these were relatives of Jesus. And here too, the Gospels don't offer us much more information about St. Jude, except at the Last Supper, St. Jude was the one who asked, "Lord, how is it that you will manifest yourself to us and not to the world?" Already there he shows his great his desire, zeal to proclaim Christ to all the world, as is fitting for an apostle. St. Jude is also the author of the short epistle in the New Testament, the last of the 7 Catholic epistles. And in that epistle, he stresses the need for Christians to hold fast to the apostles' teaching and to shun all heresy. St. Jude is popularly known as the special patron saint of helpless cases or impossible cases, given that in his epistle, he stresses the need to persevere in difficult times or seemingly impossible circumstances as Christians. Interestingly enough, Jesus himself had promoted devotion to St. Jude, his apostle, in a vision to St. Bridget of Sweden. And in this vision, he recommended that she turn to St. Jude with great faith and confidence, telling her, in accordance with his surname Thaddeus, the amiable or loving, he will show himself most willing to give help. According to the tradition in the West, St. Simon preached the gospel in Egypt and later joined St. Jude in Mesopotamia, and both went to Persia, where they were eventually martyred. St. Jude was beaten to death with a club, whereas St. Simon was sawed into pieces. So again, we don't know a whole lot besides this, from the Gospels and from tradition regarding these 2 great apostles. But what we do know should inspire us to honor them and imitate their example of being faithful to the vocation they received in life as apostles. And in particular, to, you could say, imitate their humility and their hiddenness, you could say. Not much was known about them. The details, as it were, they were relatively hidden, you could say. And in that, it could be a good sign, in a sense, that they were just wholly desirous to preach Christ and Him crucified, preach the gospel, and not to seek any personal fame or esteem or respect from the people, but to just simply preach our Lord and the gift of salvation that Christ alone can offer. I like the image of that St. Jose Maria Escriva uses regarding the apostles or apostolic souls or anyone engaged in the apostolate and sharing the gospel with others, which should include all of us in some form or another. And St. Jose Maria uses the image of the envelope, that all of us as Christians, as proclaimers of the gospel, should be like envelopes. When you receive an envelope in the mail and it's a letter, not junk mail, you have a certain appreciation of that, what it contains, some kind of letter that would be important usually. And as you know, the envelope, it has relatively little importance. It's simply to get the letter to you once it arrives in your hands, you can discard the envelope, perhaps throwing it in the trash. Who knows? Well, the letter itself is kept and appreciated. So we too are to be like envelopes containing a letter or the letter from God, which is the gospel, and that letter is addressed to everybody. And it's the most important message that we are to share with others. So let us be humble instruments in our Lord's hands, like the apostles, and to proclaim the gospel, to preach Christ, not ourselves. So to be humble, to be envelopes, bearing the letter of the gospel for others. Praise be Jesus and Mary.
Miserere